This weekend, Old Navy's heating up your summer style with $2 tanks for women, girls, and toddlers. Get the season's hottest style essential at this year's hottest price. Just $2. Tomorrow and Sunday at Old Navy and OldNavy.com. They won't last. Get there fast. Valid 527 to 528. Select styles only. Limit 5.
Blog Talk Radio.
Alternative facts.
The following message is transmitted at the request of the United States government. At 12:07 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, numerous unidentified objects of unknown intent and unknown origin were detected at high altitudes over multiple locations of Earth's outer space by the National Radio Astronomy Observatory, and these objects are presumed to be some form of controlled aircraft. It is not known if more of these aircraft will arrive, or if they will attempt entering Earth's atmosphere. United States citizens are encouraged to monitor local media outlets, as more updates will follow as information becomes available. The following message is transmitted at the request of the United States government. Attacks by the undead have been reported in several states across the country. The dead are rising from their graves and are attacking the human race. At this time, it is expected that more attacks of this nature will occur in several other states in the next few hours. The intent behind their attack is unknown at this time. He has been observed that a byte-or exchange of fluids is a method of transmission. This is an extremely dangerous situation if they crave the taste of human flesh. It is not known whether this event will last for hours, days, or even longer. Stay calm, as authorities have been dispatched to deal with these creatures. An all-clear siren will be sounded when this situation is under control. Pacific Standard Time, nor is detected a long-range nuclear missile launch. This missile is believed to be headed in the direction of all residents within a 400-mile radius of this area should seek a fallout shelter immediately.
Welcome to Within the Chaos with your host,
Rodney Shortridge,
and co-host, Robin Dalton.
Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight. You can listen in by going to blogtalkradio.com/withinthechaos, or listen in by phone. You can dial 323-870-4197, and you can also call in to ask questions to our guests at the same number, 323-870-4197. From deep within the heart of the Appalachians, I'd like to welcome everyone and thank you all for listening to Within the Chaos. My name is Rodney Shortridge, and I'll be your host tonight, along with my fiery redhead co-host, Robin Dalton. Well, Robin's not going to be here tonight because her daughter is graduating. And if that disappoints anybody, I'm sorry. But tonight, our special guest is Aldo Gonzalez. Aldo is an author of The Feeders at Night and also The Awakening the Feeders. I would like to give a big shout out to my cousins up in Ohio, Jennifer and Joe Shortridge of 222 Paranormal. If you get a chance, check out their talk show. You can find them on Facebook under 222 Paranormal. Also to the beautiful and lovely ladies of Paranormal Party and SOS, Sisters of Salem. My amazing friends, Misty and Ashley Connor, the famous Connor sisters. If you get a chance, check out their talk show. You can find them also on Facebook under Paranormal Party. I also want to give a shout out to the Facebook paranormal groups that allows us to post our shows on their pages and helping us get the word out about our guests. And I had a friend of mine tonight. She wanted me to give a shout out also because I went and got me some coffee before the show. It's Intimate Sugar. It's adult intimate products. And you can check them out at intimatesugar.com. And if we keep raining, getting all this rain that we get here in Virginia, we're going to turn into a tropical state. But enough of my bullshit. Let's go ahead and get into this because I'm so interested in what this guy has to tell us. But it's my honor to welcome our special guest, Aldo Gonzalez. Hello, Aldo, and thank you for joining us tonight.
Hi, Rodney. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah, I can hear you fine. I just wanted to make sure you can hear me. I tried to use this headset last weekend when I was doing a show and wasn't coming through very well, but maybe it was something else. Yeah, thanks for having me tonight, Rodney. This is going to be fun.
Oh yeah, it's an honor. I've been wanting to since I caught up with you on Facebook and seen your books and read a little bit about you and in the bio and stuff you sent me. I'm like, oh, this guy's got a story, and damn, I'm just going to sit back and let him just talk.
Yeah, I like to tell people I've got a million stories, but I have no answers.
It seems like life in general. Well, can you tell everyone a little bit about yourself and what started you on this journey to become an author?
Well, I back in 2007, I was going through a divorce, and unfortunately, the judge in the divorce case told me I was at the time I was separated from my wife, and I was living in a little one-bedroom apartment, and the judge told me I wouldn't be able to have any overnight visits with my two kids unless I had a bedroom for each of them. And he gave me, no joke, he gave me less than a month to find a 3-bedroom house or apartment. And I searched, and the apartment complex I was in, it wasn't working. They didn't have anything available for me. I searched around different areas. I just could not find an apartment. So I just started searching for homes. And up to this point, I've had zero experience with the paranormal, literally zero. I kind of watched the television shows and stuff like that, but I guess if somebody would have told me, my stories back at that time, I probably would have scoffed at them because I just didn't, I had no experience, didn't believe in that stuff. It was just all entertainment, that type of thing. But in everything I tried, Rodney, it just was failing. I could not get in. There was a certain house I liked. Somebody bought it out from under me, and now I'm running out of time. So my father gave me a pretty decent loan, and I found this one house. I'd probably driven by it a dozen times searching for other houses, but it just didn't look like something I'd be able to afford. It was really nice, had 3 acres of land, beautiful little country setting, and I'm like, I just can't afford it. But, here I am. I'm struggling trying to find a place, so I finally pulled in there, got the number off the for sale sign, walked around the house, knocked on the door. Nobody answered, so I figured they weren't living there or whatever, but got with the realtor, started the process. We had to pay cash because we couldn't go, it was just going to take too much time in order, to go to closing if we were going to get some sort of a loan or a mortgage on it. So between me and my father, we ended up paying cash for the house and went through, really quick. It was a real quick closing. Got into the house, and come to find out that the things that started in that house, the creepy, spooky stories started the first night I was there. And I look back on it now, and I think it was almost as if that house just had me. It just, no matter what I wanted to go in this direction, it wasn't working, or there was a roadblock in that other direction. That house was the only thing that was going to be available to me, and it became available. It was a really good price, and I moved in, and just right off the bat, stuff started happening, and lived there for 7 years, off and on. Actually, I didn't live there, all the time, 7 years. That's part of the story as well. But over the course of those 7 years, just unbelievable amount of activity in that house, and I became a believer in the paranormal rather quickly, actually. And I thought I was going crazy, just maybe because of depression, and I was sick, obviously the divorce and all that stuff. Living on your own for the first time after being married for 13 years, it was a struggle. So I thought maybe I was going insane, hearing all the voices and the footsteps and all that stuff that goes with the paranormal haunting at a house. I mean, I had it all, man. I had it all there. And that's what prompted me to write this book. Once I finally got free of the house, I wrote the book about the house, and it became an episode on TLC's show, A Haunting, and there's been some interest in buying the rights to the story to make a movie out of it. So we're kind of in the process of all of that still, and yeah, it's kind of been a wild ride. And I wrote that first book, The Feeders at Night, and then I'm finishing up the second one, Awaken the Feeders, which is about the original owners of the property. And they had a lot of crazy things happen to them as well. So, yeah, what a wild paranormal ride. I like to tell people that I've been an unwilling paranormal participant. That's kind of how I look at myself. I'm not an investigator, paranormal investigator. I've got a lot of those friends now because of everything that's going on, in the after effects of all that. I've got a lot of paranormal friends, but at the time, I'm not an investigator. I'm not into that type of thing. But yeah, it's kind of got into me, and it's funny now because I hated living there. I hated going through the things that I was going through, but now because of the book and everything, I feel like I'm giving, the ghosts of that house kind of like the middle finger now, because I hated it when I was living there. But man, am I ever enjoying the book and book signings and talking with people and stuff like that now. So I'm kind of giving them the middle finger.
Well, did you have any type of paranormal experiences before you bought the house?
No, not really, not at all. I think when we look back, my brother and I talk a little bit about some of the things that happened to us as kids. I think we lived in a haunted house growing up too, but there wasn't a lot of stuff happening to me, and I didn't see a lot of things. But my older brother, had a lot of things happen to him there. He remembers a lot of things, but I don't remember anything like that. And so I lived, the majority of my adult life really not even truly believing in the paranormal. It's only since those 7 years that, boy, have I become, a true believer.
Well, what kind of experiences did you experience at the house when you first got it?
Well, the very first night that I moved in, I'll back up a few hours because we had closing on the house in Indianapolis. The house that we bought is north of Fort Wayne, Indiana. And we had closing here in Indianapolis. And during closing, I remember a couple of weird things, like with the couple that we were buying the house from. The first thing was they told me that I could buy everything in the house for $700. I think it was $700. It could have been less. I don't remember. But anyway, it was something around like that, $700. So you can have everything in the house for $700. And I had done a couple tours of the house prior, as I was looking at the house with the realtor, and it was fully loaded. I mean, it had couches and chairs and televisions in every room, dishes in the cupboards and beds, and it looked like somebody had been living there, right? And she had said to me at closing, you know, you can buy everything in the house. We don't want anything in the house. If you want to buy it, you can buy it for $700. I'm like, yeah, I just won the lottery because, you know, I went through a divorce. The ex-wife took everything I had. I didn't have much. I'm like, hell yeah, I'll buy it. That's a great deal. You know, couldn't get that at a garage sale. And so I did. And that's one thing that you look back on now and you think, okay, now I know why they did that, see. But I didn't know at the time. And also she had mumbled under her breath to her husband, kind of when my dad and I were kind of walking out the door. I remember her mumbling to her husband with a deep sigh. She says, man, I thought we'd never get rid of it. And that's another thing that sticks with me now, because obviously at the time I thought, well, maybe they just had a hard time selling it, whatever. But, you know, little did I know that they have a hard time selling it. And I'm just, I guess I'm the unlucky sucker that ended up buying it and buying everything that was in the damn place too. So anyway, that's what happened at closing. It's a couple-hour drive, you know. After that, I finally get up to the house, and it's getting dark. I pull into the driveway, and as I pull into the driveway, the garage door opens. And so she had given me the garage door opener to put in my truck. So I thought maybe I had sat on it or somehow I pushed that button, but I wasn't really sure. But the garage door opened, so I pulled in and walk around the house. You know, everything is nice and cozy and everything's there. Everything, Rodney, you wouldn't believe the stuff they left. They left everything. It was as if it was almost like a movie, you know, where the family flees the house and all they grab is the little bit of clothes that they could get into their hands and throw it into their car, and out they drive, you know, burning rubber down the road, you know, because there was kids' toys left in the kids' room. So when they left, they literally just took their clothes. And I'm starting to realize some of this as I'm walking around, but once again, I'm not thinking paranormal at all yet. I'm just thinking it's just some strange, weird thing going on, that they had left everything. And so I'm looking around, opening up all the cupboards and everything. There's rolls of toilet paper. There's feminine products in the bathroom. There's washcloths still in the showers. There's shampoo in the kitchen. There's a refrigerator full of, you know, kind of full of food, and had some beer in there. And opening up the cupboards in the kitchen, and there's like 2 complete sets of dishes. There's like china in the cabinets way up above. There's like brand new china, and then down below there's like the dishes that they would eat on regularly, and all the silverware, and just everything that I would ever need. Everything is in that house. Sheets folded up in the hallway closet. The beds were made with pillows and everything. They did not take a damn thing. And I'm looking through all that and thinking, I got to call this guy, because obviously he's going to come back and get some of this stuff. I don't really know at this point what I bought. I kind of thought I was buying the furniture. I didn't realize I was buying their sheets and stuff too. And so I made a mental note, I'm going to call him in the morning, which would have been a Saturday morning. After a while, you know, getting a little tired, so I lay down in bed, you know, the bedroom that I pick out for myself, the master bedroom suite. I lay down in bed, turn on the television, watch it a little bit, end up getting tired and shutting the television off. And I don't know at what point this happens, point in the night, where something or somebody whispers in my ear, "Mommy, is that you?" And I start from my bed because it was clear as day. And once again, I'm still not thinking paranormal. I'm thinking, is there a little girl in this house? Is there a neighbor girl that maybe they had, you know, abandoned the house a long time ago, and one of the neighbor kids had come over and was kind of playing in the house with the toys or whatever. Maybe they were friends with the girls from the family. I don't know. I'm looking for a person. I'm looking for a human being wandering around the house with a flashlight, turning on all the lights, thinking, where the heck did this little girl go? Because she just whispered in my ear, "Mommy, is that you?" And I kind of write in the book jokingly, you know, I'm nobody's mama. I don't know how she thought I was a woman, but she thought I was her mama. And so that was the very first night I stayed in bed, probably just a few hours after crawling in bed. And that weekend, various things started happening. I would hear walking a lot in the house. I would hear footsteps walking, so somebody's walking around. And so I'm always looking around. Who the hell's in the house? And I'd hear rattling in the walls as I'm unpacking some of my boxes and putting my desk together, putting my computer to desk together, and all that stuff. I hear rattling in the walls. It's like every time I made a noise on my desk, something would make a noise in the wall. And now I'm thinking, not only is there the neighbor kids running around my house, but now I'm thinking there's like raccoons in my walls. So there was actually a time during that weekend when I opened up a wall in the bedroom. I'm positive there's a family of raccoons living in my walls because of all the noise that was going on. Yeah, there was no animals. And as the week progressed, this just constant stuff. I mean, day and night, it was very strange to have the mentality that you're not looking for paranormal because it's not even in your mindset, but it's constant. And then there becomes a point when you're like, am I hearing these things? Is this a real thing, or is this in my head? I really thought I was going insane. And I guess I'm just dumb enough to think that maybe it may have taken 10, 15, 20 days before I started thinking, motherfucker, there's a ghost in this house. I think I'm just that slow that it took me that long to think, I think I'm living in a haunted house. And then everything starts falling together. They didn't want to come back to this house. That's why they never took nothing. Now I see why I bought everything for $700. Now everything's starting to fall together. I'm thinking this house is haunted.
Damn. Wow. Well, within the 7 years that you've been at the house, what was the most noticeable event that happened to you at the home?
Well, there was a couple of things that reoccurred, a couple of different types of spirits that reoccurred. And looking back on it now, I've done a tremendous amount, hundreds and hundreds of hours of research on the property. Because, in preparation for, Awaken the Feeders, which is about the original owners of the property. I've done a lot of research, and there's been some death on the property. So I believe that there was a little girl who, come to find out in our research, there was a girl who had died in a house fire at the original house that was built back in 1856. That farmhouse burned down. The crazy thing was the farm, the landowner, the guy, he had well over 300 acres of land, and on that 300 acres he had built this farmhouse, and that farmhouse stood 150 feet behind the house that I was in. The house that I bought was not original. But it's interesting to me how close that original house was on 300 acres. He could have built that house anywhere. But it just so happened that house was right behind the house that I was living in. And I think that the little girl who had died in that house fire, I think she haunts that land. I think she haunts for some reason. I don't know if she's trapped there. I don't know if she's searching for her mom. Maybe that's why she whispered in my ear many times, Mommy, is that you? That little girl reoccurred over the 7-year period many times. I had seen her on 2 separate occasions. Actually seen her as a full-body apparition. The first time I seen her was probably a few years after living there. I was dating a girl, and she was getting ready to come over to the house. This was on a Saturday afternoon. She was getting ready after work. She was going to stop by the house, and we were going to go out to eat or something. And I was just sitting in the living room watching Sports Center on the television, and this is a Saturday. It's daylight, And then all of a sudden, just out of the corner of my, the left side of my vision, it was like a flash of light, kind of like an old camera where they would, have those flashes that they would dispose of. That's what it looked like, just a poof, flash of light. And I turned my head, and there she was, standing there, right in front of in the kitchen, right in front of the refrigerator. And she was kind of stoic looking. She wasn't moving, but her arms or legs, she wasn't moving any part of her body, but her body was moving. It was like moving forward, almost like she was floating forward. And I don't know, I look back on some of this crazy shit and I think, I don't know why I did the things I did, but at that moment, it was like something in my mind flipped, and I jumped out of my chair after her. I was going to grab her. I don't know why, but my body was telling me, grab her. So she was maybe 10 feet away, and I probably got there in about a second and a half, and she was just gone. So I had that real brief vision of her in that time. Later on, she would often try to hold my hand when I would go into the kitchen. She typically was around the kitchen area. I don't know why. But I would walk into the kitchen maybe to get something to drink out of the refrigerator, and I would feel her grab my hand. And I'd often yank it away, because you get scared when stuff happens like that, especially when you're still living alone. I put my hand away, and I don't, once again, I don't know why I do or say the things I did when I was living there, but I'm like, not now, is what I yelled out to her, not now. And I think she got mad, and there was a bowl of change that I kept on top of the counter there by the dishwasher, and that bowl of change went flying across the kitchen, hit the wall into the dining room, and quarters and nickels and dimes went all over the place. And she would often do that, like grab my hand. And she seemed friendly enough, but the problem was, we're not really prepared, I guess, oftentimes for when ghosts interact with us, and so I was often scared, So, and then I had seen her a second time. This was towards the end of the time. I'm already making plans to leave. And during that time, I'd already done a little bit of renovation in the house. And I was laying in bed at night, and something was blowing in my ear. It happened all the time, weird, blowing and talking in my ear in my bed. And I felt this breath, kind of like a long, drawn-out breath, like, and I wasn't startled, but I was mad because I couldn't sleep. And during that night, there was all kinds of activity in the bedroom. There was skittering on the floor, and constantly hearing things down the hallway, hearing mumbles and stuff. And I was just irritated with it. And I just wanted to go to sleep. I wanted it to leave me alone. And after I heard that breath in my ear, I kind of sat up in the bed, and it was dark, and I was kind of looking out. I was kind of angry. I was probably preparing to say something nasty, and there she appeared at the foot of my bed. And there was a wall on the right side of the room, and she was kind of standing at the wall. And she walked across the foot of my bed, and as she got about halfway across the foot of my bed, she turned and she looked straight at me, and she looked mean as evil. Man, she just looked evil. And she just kind of walked out the bedroom door and down the hall, which is a stark contrast to how she first appeared to me in the kitchen. Because in the kitchen, I remember her very vividly. She had beautiful blonde hair, and she was kind of pale, but she had beautiful blonde hair. She was wearing a yellow dress with white lace around the collar, and I remember she had brown eyes. I don't know why, but I remember the brown eyes. But at the foot of my bed, when she appeared to me years later, and I was kind of mad myself, she had the same dress, but it looked old. And her hair was dark. It wasn't blonde anymore. It was darker. And when she turned to me, she didn't look like a sweet little girl. She looked like an evil little girl, So I don't know if that was a reflection maybe of my mind, because I was mad and angry with her, and maybe she was reflecting that back to me a little bit. these are the things I can tell people. I've got a million stories, but I got no answers. I don't know why that happened that way. But that little girl not only appeared to me, but I had various different paranormal groups, teams come out to try to help me figure out what was going on in the house. And she appeared to a lot of those people as well. The last team that was there that helped me, they're the Paris sisters up in Fort Wayne, and that little girl appeared to every one of their team members at some point during the investigations, because they investigated the house for years. It wasn't just one night on a Saturday night they come out. I mean, they stayed with me for a long time, trying to help me through this, because I was in a really kind of a bad way, and so they stayed and they investigated probably dozens and dozens of times, and helping me through all that. So during that period that they were investigating, they each one of them experienced her in some sort of a way. So she was kind of like the main spirit, and I think she was a spirit of a dead human. And then in contrast to her, there were other things there too. I saw lots of black shadows. I saw lots of darting shadows, small shadows along the floorboard, like they were small, small, whatever they were small little creatures or small little spirits, because they were along the floorboards, or up along the ceiling. You could see them, kind of darting away, when you turn your head to look at them, all of a sudden they're gone, kind of thing. There was a lot of those things. And, over the course of the years, and with the investigators and us, really thinking about and talking about what all was going on at that house, we started to kind of call those things, those were the feeders. They wanted to feed off of my emotion, my negative emotion, my mental state, my depression, my anxiety. I was very sick at the time, and with diabetes and a number of other things, and so they liked that, and they kind of hung around and they fed off that. So we started calling them feeders. That's where the whole name of the book comes from, Feeders at Night. So there was a lot of those shadows, and I don't know what they are, but I don't think they were human. I think they were just some other spiritual thing that maybe we don't fully understand yet, but maybe they have the ability to come and go. And those were small things. They were like the spiritual vermin of the house, the things that were kind of picking up the scraps on the floor type of spirits. They weren't menacing. They were kind of like rats, kind of. They kind of come and go looking for food. And then there was the ominous, evil type things. I call them evil. I don't know if they're evil per se. I think they're just negative, maybe. Maybe they were evil. I don't think they were demonic. I've got a lot of Christian friends who claim that I lived in a demon-possessed house and all that other shit. I don't necessarily believe that was the case. I think it was something that we as humans here, we know very, very little about. We're just scratching the surface of what else is out there in the spiritual world. But there was these more ominous, more larger, more highly intelligent hauntings that were going on too. There was one particular spirit that would show itself to one of the paranormal team members that was there, one of the Paris sisters. Her name was Tina, and he often showed himself to her, but he showed himself to other people too. I actually seen him one time. But everybody else that ever investigated the house kind of talked about him. Maybe they described him differently, but it was really him. And I call him. I don't know, but I think it was one thing. I don't think it was many things. I think that particular dark entity really had a hold on the house, had a hold on the property, and really had a hold on me too. And he kind of showed himself as almost like a pirate, believe it or not. I laugh at these things because they're funny to say, but when you're going through it, it's scary as shit. But I kind of laugh at it now because he kind of was a pirate. He kind of looked like a pirate. He looked like one of those ghosts from Pirates of the Caribbean that lived in the water. That's kind of what he looked like. He had like a weird floppy pirate hat and scruffy, and just kind of like a pirate clothes, and that's how he appeared to people. And we called him the Pukey Man because he couldn't speak. whenever he tried to speak to Tina, it just come out in like pukey sounds to her. And she never liked talking to him, and she often would tell him to go away, I don't want to talk to you, and he'd end up going away. But there was this one particular night when we were, I don't know, me and Tina and another member of the Pair Sisters, Cheryl, they were just planning on coming over one night, and before we kind of set up in the evening or whatever at the house, we just kind of went out to eat. We went out to eat at a Mexican restaurant, talked about some stuff, and what's going on with my life and all that. And then we'd come back to the house, and now it's kind of getting dark, and so we'd sit in the living room and kind of just talk about nothing really, just talk about life in general, and then just see what happens. And this one particular night, it was dark in there. I was sitting on the couch. Tina was sitting on the chair next to me, and Cheryl was standing in the dining room. And the old pukey man shows up and tries to talk to Tina, and a lot of it was in her head. He tried to talk through her head, and even though we've all seen him at some point, for whatever reason, he was really attracted to her. He wanted to talk to her. And so he was trying to communicate with her, and I didn't know what was going on because I'm just kind of looking at Cheryl standing in the kitchen, or standing in the dining room, which is right next to the kitchen. I was kind of looking out the dining room window, and I hear Tina say, go away. And before I had a chance to ask her what's going on, I'm still staring out the dining room window, and it's, the moon's out, see the moonlight. And Cheryl's purse that she had sitting on the kitchen table lifts up, like right in my view. It was like I was looking right perfectly where it was at. It lifts up right into my view, right in the middle of the window, and then gets slammed down on the kitchen table, knocks over one of the kitchen table and lands on the floor. And Tina's like, that's the pukey man. The pukey man's mad because I told him to go away. And that was an event that is hard to forget, because that just the feeling in the house whenever he was kind of around was really wet kind of a feeling. It was almost like a suffocating kind of a feeling in the house. So we kind of always knew when he was around. And it was that was kind of like what was going on. And, Cheryl was standing there. She saw her purse get thrown. Tina heard the purse get thrown. I'm watching the purse get thrown. And once again, I don't understand why ghosts, when they get mad, they like to throw shit, but they do, I guess. When they get mad, they throw things, and they throw temper tantrums. And so, that pukey man was another force in the house that was always kind of dealing with. And boy, there was just so many more, Rodney. I mean, we saw ghost bats. No lie, ghost bats. They looked like little bats. They'd fly like down into your face, and then they were gone. Everybody saw those. And there was also like animals in the house, like spiritual animals. There was a thing that we started calling the crawler because we saw him so many times. And it was almost like a big cat, kind of. And it would kind of appear at the foot of my bed in the morning, kind of pawing at the bed in the morning. And sometimes I'd get confused and not be sure if it was my cat, because I had a cat at the house. I'm thinking maybe it's actually my cat, and I talked to it like it was my cat. And then come to find out my cat was outside all night long. Here I was in the morning saying, oh, Jorge, leave me alone. And I'm not even talking to my cat. I'm talking to the damn ghost at the end of the bed. So I could go on and on and on. I saw an old man in overalls at my front door. I saw somebody seeing like what they described kind of like an Amish kid, like what Amish kids would wear, an Amish boy in the backyard. They seen him. There was just a number of that type, just constantly. There was always something going on, it seemed like. And, I have no answers, man. No answers. There's just a lot of activity. A lot of people like to think that possibly there was some sort of a portal maybe at the house, and different spiritual things could come and go. And maybe it started off small when I first moved in, and very little Maybe it was just the girl who was there. Maybe there was something else there too, but not very many. But over the course of time, the house got very spiritually congested, I guess is the best way to say it. There was a time towards the end when I would leave the property. I'd go to McDonald's. I would no longer talk with Tina and Cheryl or anybody else about what's going on at the house. I just couldn't do it anymore. I felt like they were listening in. I felt like they knew what my next move was, and they were preventing me from getting away. They were making me sick, that type of thing. And so we would actually leave and go sit at McDonald's and talk about what's going on at the house and think of ways to try to escape, So towards the end, it was 24/7, no joke, just something constantly, always happening. Whether it be just a voice that you hear in the back room, or maybe a skittering across the floor, or a bang in the bathroom, or you hear somebody talking in the other room, or you see all the, the darting shadows. And then there was black masses. There were these huge frickin', I don't know if I can cuss on your radio show. I think I have already.
Oh, yeah. You can cuss, yeah.
Okay. Okay. There was these very large black masses, and they would literally fill a room. I'd be watching the television, and my cat would go running across the floor, terrified at something behind me, and I'd get up and turn around, and the whole room in the middle of the day was pitch black, and you could see this black swirling mass go shooting down the hallway and back into one of the bedrooms. So I don't know. It was a struggle living there. I hated living there. It was a beautiful house with a beautiful property, but boy, it was just a nightmare. Just a nightmare.
Well, do you think that where you had your health issues, that maybe those spirits were drawn to you? Did anyone out of these groups or investigators maybe go that route?
Yeah, they did that fairly quickly on, because I talk about the Paris sisters a lot because they were there for years, really, and they really helped me, with my struggles there. Now, there were some other groups as well that had showed up prior to them, but they never really hung out or tried to help me in any way. They were just really there for a paranormal fix for on a Saturday night type of a thing. But the many of them would say possibly that my health issues was a draw to them because it was a negative energy, and they wanted to keep me sick. They wanted to keep me down. They wanted to keep me depressed, so that they can feed off of that negative energy. And I think there's a lot of validity to that too. And actually, honestly, after I left the house, I was been diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and been struggling with cancer for the better part of the last year. And there's kind of a theory going around in the paranormal world that many people who have been directly touched by negative spiritual activity find themselves with real bad health issues. And so it could very well be that could be one reason why I've been struggling with that cancer. At least that's one of the theories behind that. And I know that the Paris sisters, they really tried to get me in a different state of mind. They tried to make sure that I was taking my medicine. They tried to make sure that I was happy and my mind was right. They wanted to get me out of that negative feeling, that sick feeling. So especially Tina, she spent a lot of time making sure that I was taking my medicine correctly. That I was taking my insulin shots. I was checking my blood sugar. I can't tell you how many times she would call, or she'd stop by and she'd like, "Have you checked your blood sugar? Check your blood sugar, see where your blood sugar's at. Let's make sure you get your insulin. Let's make sure your blood's right." Because she knew that if I started to take a turn for the worse, the activity in the house would increase. Mm-hmm. So I think there's a lot of validity to that. There needs to be a lot more scientific research going on with regard to that, because I think that there's something there that makes sense. It's one of those things that's maybe on the cusp of, the paranormal. A lot of people don't talk about that type of stuff. A lot of people in the paranormal field aren't interested in trying to find answers. They'll say they are, but they're not interested in trying to find answers to some of those questions. Am I sick because of the spiritual activity? Or because I'm sick, is there a lot of activity? So, that's something that really needs to be researched more.
Oh yeah, I agree, because I'm a bad doctor too. When we do our investigations, throughout, it's been going on 9 years, I get a lot of EVPs and stuff that call my name, and a lot of places we go to, these people say that we seem to get more activity when we investigate compared to other people that investigate, and I've kind of got a theory. Maybe it's due to where, my health is bad because of the theory that's going on out there, that they're drawing off that. And I don't know. It's just more research needs to go into it. And I guess I'm the guinea pig.
Yeah, you'd be a good guinea pig for it. I highly recommend that you look into that. I don't investigate. I just don't. It's not who I am, really. I talk about it a lot, but I don't investigate. But it's good to have an investigator like yourself. It's not good that you're sick. don't get me wrong. But if you are sick and you are an investigator, you are the perfect person to really look into that.
Yeah, that's true. Well, you mentioned that you was on TLC's The Haunting. Can you explain, or what was that like in your experience with them? Because I know when we done a show with A&E, I didn't have a good experience with them.
I enjoyed it. I think it was. It is what it is. They've got to make an hour show very entertaining, and they focused on my show. They focused on the old man that I saw at the front door. Excuse me, 1 second. I'm coughing here. Hold on. Sorry about that.
No, that's fine.
They kind of focused on they focused on one particular thing that happened at the house that really wasn't a dynamic experience. Obviously I saw a full body apparition of an old man, but they wanted to really expand on this whole feeders thing, and so that they talked about on the show how the ghosts in my house were feeders, and they used this one particular ghost that I had told them about that I had seen at the front door. They kind of used him as the guy or the ghost or the thing or the feeder for the entire show. So there's a lot about the show itself that isn't accurate in that way, but they were trying to tell the story the best way they can that's still entertaining and fit within I think 47 minutes or whatever they have with commercials. So they could have done a lot better. I think there was a much better story about the house. I think the little girl would have been perfect for a great scary show if they wanted to talk about that, but they went another direction. I was kind of disappointed that they did that. But my experience with them was really positive. The producer was really good. Talking with the lady at New Dominion Pictures, she was very, as she was getting my story and talking with me, she kept me involved in all of that. And they promised that they wouldn't say something or tell a story in the show that wasn't an actual story. So the things they portrayed in the show actually happened, but it wasn't by the old man from the front door type of a thing, the feeder that they wanted to show throughout the entire show. So I was a little disappointed in that, but I think it turned out to be interesting and fun. And I do some book signings for the book, and I like to show the episode and talk about it with people and stuff like that. So I'm glad I did it. It's just one of those 15 minutes of fame type of thing that's kind of interesting. Mm-hmm. You didn't have a very good experience, though. Tell me about yours.
Well, they did 3 different investigations that we done, and when I went in to do the interview, they they did a line of questioning, and the questions were kind of trying to lean you into a different aspect of what actually happened. And I started getting aggravated, and I told them, I'm like, I'm not lying for you all. I said, I understand you all trying to make money and ratings and all that, but, you know, I don't do this to get fame and glory or none of that. It is what it is, and if you don't like it, then this interview or all this is done. And I actually took my mic off and started outside, and the director and producers, they both followed me outside and said, here, smoke a cigarette, calm down. And they said, we'll do it the way you want. And I'm like, you better. I said, because, you know, I'm not a sellout, and I'm not going to be a sellout. And they did get a couple of things that they edited that I didn't like, but beyond that, they did what they said they was going to do. So I just had to, I guess, flex my big body.
Yeah. I actually went through that too with the interview process on camera. They were asking a lot of questions, and then after a while, I'm realizing I know where they're going with this. They want me to say this. Yeah. And this particular thing or whatever. I felt that too during the interview process, but all in all, you know, it was a good experience for me. You know, I've had a couple of more opportunities for other shows that have contacted me and wanting to make a show out of this or that, and I've kind of turned them down at this point because I think I got the good show out. It's on a haunting. If anybody wants to see it, they can see it. They can see that show. I don't need to make two or three more of the same thing.
Right. Oh, I agree with you.
And it's not like they pay us. I mean, they're not paying us anything, right? You know.
Exactly. They pay for my gas because they're going to fly us out, and I don't like to fly. And I told them, I said, I could drive out, and they said, you're willing to drive all the way to California? I said, I used to drive a tractor trailer. I was out in L.A. every week. They're like, oh, okay. So they told me to figure out my miles, figure out the gas and all that, and they sent me a check, and they paid me my way out. And then when we got done with the interviews and everything, they gave me another check, and so I can buy my gas to head back home.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know what? They had told me something about that, and it makes sense, and I actually appreciate it. They had told me that we don't like paying for any story. And here's the reason why. Once we start paying for stories and the word gets out that we're going to pay such and such amount for a haunted story, do you realize how many fake haunted stories we're going to be inundated with? And they said, we're not interested in the fake stories just for money. We're interested in the real stories. And we believe if there's a real story out there, the people who are involved in it will participate in this. And, honestly, they told me that I can use their logos and their name, in perpetuity. So as long as I live, as long as I want, I can say I've been on TLC, I've been on A&E, I've been on, the show Haunting. So I think that's actually a good thing for my position right now, especially doing book signings and things. That's kind of a good promotional thing for me. So, it is what it is. But I like the fact that they aren't willing to pay for stories because they don't want the fake ones.
Right. Well, I agree with that. Yeah. Well, you said, and I'm going to quote you. It was a place where the world was thin. A place where my reality rubbed against another reality. What does that mean?
Yeah, I believe that whatever's going on at that property, I believe there's something there. It's like our reality that we live in now, the human reality, and then the spiritual reality where all this stuff's coming from really touches each other, and every now and then things can get through. And during the time that I was really struggling with the haunting there at the house, I also would like to talk of my reality being thin, meaning I wasn't sure where I was sometimes. I remember sitting in my garage, Rodney, and I escaped to my garage a lot. A lot of noise going on in my house, a lot of things, a lot of activity. I'd go out in my garage, sit and smoke a pack of cigarettes in the middle of the night with my garage doors open, looking out into, the wild blue yonder there. And oftentimes I thought to myself, here I am at this one location where all this shit's going on. Everybody out there is alive. Everybody out there, and that's where life is happening. That's where people are laughing and joking and having fun with their friends, and life is going on. People are mowing their lawn. People are drinking beer with their buddies. They're swimming in pools. They're going to school. They're going to work. And here I sit in my fucking garage, and I cannot escape this reality. I can't escape it. And I often would have those moments where I wasn't even sure where I was. Am I in their reality right now? Am I existing in that world, or are they in my world? I don't know, because my life was so upturned at that time. It was hard to continue to focus on the things of life. So I often thought maybe what was going on at the house was their reality, not my reality.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's understandable. Well, how do people react to your stories? Do they believe you, or do they think that you're a nut job, or how do you deal with, like negative responses to your story?
Well, I'll tell you the God's honest truth, okay? I got a two-part answer to this, because I've thought about this many an hour. There's really two parts to this answer. The first part is very simple. I just don't care what people think anymore. I've just come to that realization. Early on, I worried. I worried about what people would think of me. I worried about whether or not they thought I was lying. I worried about they thought I was crazy. I worried about that shit. But now, I'm beyond that now. This is a part of my life, like it or not. This is a part of my, my reality now, like it or not. For the rest of my life, this is going to be a story that I can tell. And the book will be out there for forever. So now it just doesn't matter what people think. But early on, I had a lot of people not question whether or not it happened, but questioning different aspects of my life now. Because I'm a Christian man. I may cuss, I may drink, I may smoke, but I'm a Christian man. And my relationship with God is a little bit different than maybe the preachers down the road in the big church that seats 10,000 people. My relationship to God is a little bit different than his, but I think mine's more real. God and I talk. We have a relationship. And early on, people wanted to doubt my Christianity. They weren't doubting my stories. They were doubting parts of my personality, parts of my spirituality, doubting the parts that I thought were very important. And so it was those people that hurt me the most. It's, if you came up to me after I told you this story, maybe after this interview, you just say, listen, Al, I heard all your stories. I just think you're full of bullshit. Rodney, you could absolutely say that to me, and you and I could still be friends, because it just doesn't matter to me. But
right.
If you say, man, there's something wrong with you spiritually, you got to get right with God, or you're demon possessed, or what's wrong with you that you would even talk about those types of things. They're not talking about the stories. They're talking about me personally. And that's what hurt me the most. I've lost a lot of Christian friends, believe it or not. Not by my doing, but because they refuse to believe that I can be a Christian and talk about these stories. That I could be a Christian and write this terrible, terrible book about demons in my house. Well, I didn't write about demons in my house. I just wrote the pure, honest facts of what happened to me while I lived at that house. Call them demons, call them spirits, call them dead Aunt Betsy, call them my imagination. You can call them whatever you want to call them. But those are my stories. Those are the things that happened to me while I was there. I can't change it. I didn't ask to be there. I didn't ask to have this happen to me. It just happened to me. And so when you have those personal type of attacks, those are the things that I have a harder time dealing with. You can call me a liar. I'm okay with that. But if you start questioning my integrity or questioning my relationship with my God or questioning my relationship with my kids, how can you allow your kids to live there? How can you talk to your kids about that stuff? You're just putting terrible things in their mind. Now they're going to have nightmares and shit like that. So I don't know. I guess that it kind of gets me fired up a little bit because I have to deal with that a lot. Even to this day, I still deal with stuff like that. I had a preacher friend of mine. I went to I went to college with him. I actually have a pastoral ministry degree. I was a preacher at a church for a number of years. I was a youth pastor. I've been in the church and serving in the church for quite some time. I haven't for a while now, but that's a different story. But I had a preacher friend of mine that called me an apostate and blocked me on Facebook and cut off his phone from me and won't even talk to me now. Won't even talk to me. So those are the things that bother me the most. Those are the things that I struggle with the most because I'm not trying to influence anybody. I'm not trying to make you a believer in my story. That's never been my goal. My goal was just to state the facts as they happen to me. State the stories, tell the story as it happened to me, and then allow anybody who read it or heard my stories, me tell my stories, let them make their own judgment on what actually happened or what was actually going on, because I don't know. I really don't know what was going on. I really don't. You tell me how many ghosts were in my house, I couldn't tell you. You tell me how many stories I have, I got a million of them. I have enough stories just from those 7 years living in that house. I can probably write 3 more books and just simply tell the story of what happened,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some people could be really cruel.
Yeah.
Have you ever been like physically or spiritually attacked by any unknown entity in the house? And if so, can you explain that experience or experiences?
Yeah, I was. Towards the end, things got very personal towards me. It was almost like they were directing their energy at me. Early on, I think they stayed off kind of a little bit. They were there. I knew that they were there, but they didn't get close to me. Except for the little girl. She whispered and she held my hand and stuff like that. But towards the end, see, I had actually sold the house on land contract about halfway through the 7 years that I owned it. And things fell through. That's a whole story in and of itself. It was an older couple in their 70s. They actually vanished off the face of the earth. We can't even find them. They just destroyed the house. I had to come in and renovate. So I was actually living with a friend at the time, and when I finally got the house back from them, it was a long process to get it back, through the courts. To have them evicted, but in the end, they were just gone anyway. But when I did get the house back, it was just destroyed. I mean, there was a pile of human feces in the living room that was probably 4 feet wide and 6 inches tall. Just a big pile of human feces. Both of the toilets had been used to the capacity. It was just, the shit was overflowing from both of the toilets in both the bathrooms. Now, I don't know how a 70-year-old couple could get to the point where they were doing that. I don't know. But the sheriff, because I had to show the sheriff my eviction papers on this particular day, and then he drove me down to the house, and we were going to evict them. I hadn't heard from those people for a long time. And if they were there, he was going to physically remove them so I can get the house back. Well, he was the one who found that. The sheriff of the county found that. We walked into the house, and he was showing me, what he found. And he was like, I don't know who you rented this house to, but they were filthy, that type of stuff. Yeah, they were filthy, all right. I don't know what happened to them. I don't know. That's one of the crazy other parts of the story that I don't have an answer to. What would happen to a 70-year-old couple that they would do just inhuman stuff like that? I don't know. And where did they go? They owe me $10,000, for back rent, or for the land contract that they didn't pay, and also for the renovation, because we got a judgment in our favor for all of that. So they owe us $10,000, but we can't find them. They're nowhere to be found.
Wow.
But I did the renovation. I tell you that story to tell you this story. We had to go in and renovate. I mean, we had to tear up floorboards, and we tore down all the drywall and put up all new drywall, repainted, new wooden floors, completely renovated the kitchen. It was really beautiful when we were all done. But it's interesting because at the time when I was doing that, I had no idea that there is such a thing that when you start renovating haunted houses, it kind of pisses the ghosts off. I had no idea that was such a thing. I just didn't. And that's how ignorant I was of paranormal stuff at the time. But my son and I, we took a whole summer long and renovated that house from top to bottom. It was beautiful when we were done, inside. And we, preparing to get it sold again. We were trying to sell it. And from that moment on, I had moved out of my friend's house and moved back into the house. And from that moment, what used to be kind of the spiritual activity being at a distance now became more close to me and personal. I don't know if it was them pissed off that I had done something like renovated the house, or if it was just they were peaking. Maybe the activity just was peaking at that time. But things would happen to me at night all the time. I ended up living in my son's room. And I hardly ever went into the other rooms of the house. I'd go into the kitchen to get something to eat, maybe cook something, but I'd take it straight back into my son's room. I don't know why I picked my son's room. He didn't live with me all the time, but I guess it was just comforting just to be with, and in his bed, on his sheets. I guess it was just comforting to me. So I kind of lived in his room, and at nighttime, I could hear it. I heard them coming because I did have carpet in the house, but I had to pull all that up. Now it's all hardwood floor. So now what used to be the soft little pitter-patter of spiritual feet going down the hallway, that's no more now. Now it's like velociraptor toes, like you'd see on Jurassic Park, the clicking of those big-ass toes. That's what it was like, man. You could hear them walking, coming down the hallway, standing at my son's door. And I'd be laying in bed trying to sleep. I'd have the radio on or something on, or earplugs in. I was trying to always kind of drown out the sound of the house. But there it is, the doorknob's shaking, moving. Even though I locked it, the next thing you know, the door swings open, and here comes click, 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 walking into the bedroom. And there was one particular night that was the worst, probably the scariest thing that ever happened to me at the house. That happened where I heard them coming. The door was locked. They got it open. I'm kind of got the covers up to my nose, like you could see a scared 45-year-old man right in bed with the covers up to his nose, wondering what the hell's going to happen next. Kind of facing the wall, and I heard it come in with the toe clicking, like the toenail clicks on the floor. And then it stopped. And I'm laying there, and I'm looking at the wall. I'm wide awake. It woke me up. And then I feel one foot, whatever it was, got one foot on the side of the bed. And you could feel it, its weight, push the bed down. And then the next thing you know, it hopped with the other foot onto the bed. So whatever the fuck this thing was, it was standing on the edge of my bed looking over me, and I'm there with my covers up thinking, I don't know what's going to happen, but I don't even want to look. I don't even know. But something's going to happen to me. And then in a split second, it had grabbed, whatever this thing was, had grabbed all of the sheets of my bed, not just the comforter that I was kind of holding on to, but the comforter, the sheet, and the fitted sheet on the bed. And it pulled all of them off, and in the force of pulling the sheets and the comforter and everything off the bed, it kind of flung my body around to where I was sitting at the edge of the bed, looking at what I was sure was going to be a velociraptor, right? And there was nothing in the bedroom. Now, I don't know if it was invisible and it was standing there looking at me, getting ready to bite my head off or rip out my soul. I don't know what it was, but I couldn't see it. But there in the corner of the bedroom was all of my sheets and my comforter. And it happened while I was awake. It happened while I was aware. And it happened physically to me where it actually pulled me with the sheets. And there I sat. And so I did what every sane person would do. I slipped on my shoes. I didn't take the time to put on any pants. And I grabbed the shirt that was laying on the floor next to the bed, and I was running like hell to get out of the house. I got into my truck, opened the garage door, and peeled out down my driveway. My drive was a long driveway. It was like 100 yards. This was out in the country. This house is out in the country. And I as fast as I could, I was just going to leave. I don't even know where I was going to go, but here I am with shoes and underwear and a shirt that I don't even have on, and I'm sitting in my car and it's cold outside. In my truck, actually, and it's cold outside. Sitting at the end of my driveway, thinking, what in the hell what do I do? Where do I go? You know, what just happened to me? And I'm just like so freaking confused and concerned, and I had to leave, but I had nowhere to go. I didn't know what to do. All alone in my truck out in the middle of nowhere. So I'm sitting there in my truck, and I'm looking back at the house, thinking, you know, my life is just fucked up right now. That's what I'm thinking. Looking back at the house, and I can see into my son's room because there was a light that I kept on above my washer and dryer that was kind of by the kitchen. There was just a fluorescent light. I just kept it on all the time. And that light, that little bit of light there by the washer and dryer, above the washer and dryer, kind of lit up the entire house. So it's kind of a weird thing. But with that little bit of light, I could see everywhere in the house. And I sat there, and I'm just looking in the house, and I'm thinking, I wonder if that's what draws this activity. Not necessarily the fluorescent light, but that little bit of light that's coming from me, that little bit of whatever they liked of me. And here I am 100 yards away from my house, and I can see everything going on in the house. And it was almost like a realization. It was almost like God flipped a switch in my brain, and I'm sitting there realizing something for the first time. I'm looking at the house, and the house is me. I'm looking at the house, but it is a microcosm of my life. There is something about me or something in my life or something going on within me that draws these things to it. And no matter how far you get away, they can still kind of see in all your rooms. They can kind of see in your bedroom. They can kind of see in your kitchen. They can kind of see in your dark places. They can kind of see what you do in the bathroom type of stuff. And I liken the thing that pulled the sheets and everything, I liken it as something that is far more intelligent than me. It knew what my thoughts were. It knew what I was planning. It knew that I was struggling. It knew that I wanted to get out of the house. It knew that I wanted to sell the house. And it was far more intelligent than me, and so it was always 1 step, 2 step, 3 steps ahead of me. And so I eventually go back into the house and, suck up enough nerve, probably after I sucked down about a whole pack of cigarettes in my truck before I did that. But I eventually got back into the house, and, that night. And all the lights were on, obviously, after that point, and laying down on the couch in the living room with the television on, blaring as loud as I can because I didn't want to hear anything else going on. And it was almost as if it realized, too, that I realized what it was, that I realized that kind of like I was on to it, and so now it was kind of on to me, too. And almost on a nightly basis, 3:33, 3:32, 3:31, somewhere around that time, every night, no joke, every night, it would come back into the room, and it would do something. It would cause my phone to ring, wake me up. It would kick at the bottom of the bed, wake me up. It would stand up my bed, wake me up. Oftentimes I would wake up and I would realize that I had vomited, and almost like it got too close to me and my body just rejected it. I don't know if that's a thing or not. I don't know, but it was almost like what was happening. I'd wake up with vomit on me. I vomited in the middle of the night because this thing was in the room. And I'd get to the bathroom, clean up, whatever. So towards the end there was a lot of physical attacks, a lot of getting way too close to me. I would get scratches across my face out of nowhere. People would see it, and then, 20 minutes later, they'd be gone. So there was a lot of physical attack towards the end.
Mm-hmm. Well, how was you able to keep your sanity with all this going on?
I don't think I did a very good job of it. Honestly, I'd just be honest with you. I don't think I did a very good job of it. I was a mess. There's just no way of getting around. I can't lie about it. I was a mess. I started drinking a lot. I smoked a lot of cigarettes and drank a lot of Johnny Walker Red in my garage, a lot. And that obviously didn't help either, but that's kind of where I was at. Thank God, and I give the Paris sisters from Fort Wayne, Indiana, a lot of credit, because I experienced a lot of the worst part of the paranormal groups. I don't have a lot of respect for paranormal groups. When especially if they're kind of new to it and they want to do a lot of home inspections, I would rather see those people go to Waverly Hills Sanitarium or go to Rhodes Hotel or go to some paid location if you want to see a ghost or experience something. Don't go to somebody's house who's struggling. Don't go to a highly active haunted house and think that you have all the tools you need to help them. Because I experienced 4 terrible teams before I finally got to the Paris sisters, who did things a lot differently. The 4 teams prior, all they really wanted was, it was kind of like the paranormal prom. They were just looking for, a cup of paranormal feel in a house, They just wanted to see a ghost. They wanted to get spooked. And then when something would happen in the house, they'd be like, "Ooh, did you hear that? Oh, I'm so scared," kind of bullshit. Well, I'm struggling in the house. I don't really have the means of leaving the house because everything I owned I put into the house to buy the house, I don't have the means to get out of it, and I'm struggling. And on top of it, I'm completely ignorant in the paranormal field. I don't know what's going on. I need somebody to kind of walk me through it, and then let's find a plan. Let's figure this out. Let's see if we can do this to cause, this type of thing to stop, or let's try this and see if this helps. I didn't get that from the first 4 teams. I got it from the Paris sisters, and so thank God that they came into my life when they did. Because they were there originally, like the first half, if you split my time at the house, it was like 3.5 years and 3.5 years. And then in between, I lived with, a friend of mine because I had sold it on land contract. But that first 3.5 years, they were there, and they set up the equipment, and they set up their audio and visual and stuff, and they captured a lot of evidence, And they confirmed with me that there's activity here, and it's not you. You're not crazy. We're capturing things, and the things you told us you were experiencing, we're experiencing too while we're here. So they reaffirmed with me that I'm not nuts. And then we kind of parted ways a little bit because the house was sold on contract. And then when I moved back in, and then all this activity started kind of ramping up again, almost to a peak. I called them back, and they came back. But this time, they came back and they realized, man, and they told me flat out, Aldo, you're sick. You got to get healthy. Aldo, you're drinking too much. You got to stop drinking. It's not healthy for you to smoke 3 packs of cigarettes a day. You got to stop smoking packets. Everything you're doing is helping whatever's here feed off of you. So let's start a plan and let's figure this out. Figure out what we need to do. Let's go. Tina went with me to the doctors, and so she understood kind of where I was, with my diabetes and some other physical problems that I was having, some things that was going on, and so she knew where I was with my medicine and everything. And that's the type of care that they were giving me. And they changed their whole perspective the second time around, because I was just not in a very good way. They changed their whole thing. And they told me, and I don't remember which one told me, I think it was Tina. She had said to me, and it sticks with me to this day, the words that came out of her mouth. She said to me, the living is far more important than the dead. And we no longer care about finding evidence for your house. We don't care about that anymore. We don't need any more evidence. We've got enough. Now we're here for you. And we're going to do, when we come over and we do things, it's going to be for you, to give you comfort, to make sure your medicine is right, to make sure you're eating right. Because I spent, out of 7 days a week, I spent 6 days by myself because I worked out of the house too. See, so I didn't have to leave the house. And so oftentimes they'd come over and, hey, let's go out to eat. They'd pick me up, take me out to eat, at least get me out of the house for a while too. So their whole approach to being paranormal investigators changed, and they kind of stopped being paranormal investigators and really just became my friends and helped me through all that. So how did I stay sane? It's very simple. The Paris sisters in Fort Wayne, they did it. They made an effort, a conscious mental effort, to make sure that I knew they cared about me and they could give a fuck about what's going on in the back room right now, because whatever it is making a lot of noise and throwing shit. I don't even care about that. They'd sit in the living room and talk with me. So that's how I stayed sane, and that's really how I escaped the house. We made a plan away from the house, sitting at a chicken place. I don't know if it was Kentucky Fried Chicken. I forget what they call it up there. We sat at a chicken place and made a plan how we're going to escape. How am I going to escape? Because they didn't want it to follow me either. So they did a lot of saging the house. They did a lot of different things. We prayed a lot, that type of thing. So we made a plan, and we stuck to the plan, and it's kind of funny. I laugh about it because it's kind of funny, because we didn't want the spirits or the ghosts to know what we were doing, right? So we did it away from the house so they couldn't hear us. But we made a plan, and we stuck to the plan, and I got an apartment and finally got out of the house. And Tina was the last person in the house, and she said she had never been so scared in her life. She felt that her life was threatened when she was there, because I had left some things there. I'd forgotten something, and she didn't want me to go back. So she said she'll go back. So I gave her the key to the house. She goes back to the house. There's like some computer cords that I left in the corner. And she went in there, and she was going to get the computer cords, and I don't remember exactly what she said. It was more of a feeling, I think, that she felt like her life was threatened. Now, I also got to tell you this story with regard to that story. I don't even know what our time is. Do we have plenty of time?
Yeah, we got about 30 more minutes left.
Okay, we got a little bit of time. I got to tell you this story, too, because it kind of relates. I had told you that when I first bought the house, the garage door opened for me. Well, that happened all the time for me. I can't tell you how many times I'd come home from getting groceries or whatever the hell I was doing. I'd come home. It seemed like as soon as my truck tires hit the driveway, the garage door would open. It was almost like, welcome home, come on in, right? So it was kind of a joke a little bit, and we joked about it and we laughed about it, and then we tested it, and obviously it always worked every time we tested. Be like, okay, we're almost there, just watch. As soon as I turn in the drive, yep, there's the garage doors. They started to open for me. The opposite would happen with Tina, part of the Paris sisters. The opposite would happen with her. She would come over a lot, check on me or whatever. And there was a point where I was working. I had a job nearby, and she was working there too. And so she would come, pick me up in the morning. We would go work at this place. And it's funny because sometimes I'd leave the garage door open for her. You know, I'm getting ready or whatever, and she can just kind of pull in, especially when it was cold outside or whatever. I'd leave the garage door open, and she'd pull into the garage, wait for me, whatever. Well, almost. So when I would pull into the garage, when I'd pull into the drive, the doors would open. But when Tina would pull into the driveway, those motherfuckers would close. It was like they did not want her at the house. It was almost like, once again, I think they're smarter than me. I think they were kind of on to me. They kind of knew what was going on or something. I don't know. So whenever Tina would get into close to the house or drive down the driveway, because it was a 100-yard driveway, the garage doors would shut on her on their own. And that happened a lot, and we joked about these garage doors a lot. It even happened with the sheriff, believe it or not. When we got the house back, I had forgotten that was going on with me, that was something that happened at the house. And I'm driving behind the sheriff, and the sheriff pulls into my drive, and then as soon as I pull into the drive behind the sheriff, the garage door's open, and I'm like, oh, you motherfuckers, you know. I remembered, you guys, god dang, I can't get away from it. Well, when Tina was there the last time to pick up those cords for me, she was feeling threatened. And she tells the story great. And she kind of was hightailing it out of the house. I'm going to grab this and I'm going to go. And when she got in, and she had pulled into the garage with her car, because it was cold out or something. And she said that when she got into the garage, because she had closed the garage door behind her, when she got into the garage from the man door, the garage doors opened for her. They were like, get the hell out of here. Get out. We don't want you here. So that's just another interesting little quirk of the frickin' haunted house I lived in for a while.
Wow. Well, what's your opinion on what a ghost could be? And also, why do you think spirits linger and don't move on?
Yeah, I really don't have a good answer. Why was that little girl on the property? It kind of breaks my heart a little bit to think that here she is, probably 7, 8, 9 years old, and she's still there at the house. She's still there after all these hundreds of years, you know, still there. It just kind of breaks my heart. I wish she would move on. I wish she would be able to, you know, find peace somewhere and find her mom or whatever, whoever she's looking for. So why she's there, I don't know. I don't know why that is. But it's a true thing. It is a true thing. There are spirits of dead people, relatives, friends, whatever, that are still lingering. And I don't know if they don't know to cross over. I don't know if they have some sort of unfinished business. These are all the types of things that you hear a lot of. You know, hear people who are in the paranormal field, they talk a lot about this type of thing. I don't have the answer to that. I also believe that sometimes when you see a spirit, say it's a spirit, let's just use the little girl in my house. While I lived at the house, I called her Katie. I don't know. Well, I know why. The neighbor's dog was named Katie, and I named the little girl Ghost Katie just in case somebody overheard me talking to her. Then they would think that I'm just talking about the neighbor dog, you know, because I was like protecting myself a little bit. But sometimes I think that if you see the ghost or the spirit of a little girl or a little boy or something innocent, it could be a deception. I think there are things out in the spiritual world that have the ability to mimic, that have the ability to take on the form of something that in your mind is innocent and something that in your mind you can approach and not be fearful of. Now, I don't know if they do that because they want to do something to you or hurt you or harm you, or maybe they do that to help you so that you're not scared of it. I don't know which is the answer, but I think there's some validity in that as well. there are many things in the spiritual world that we have no concept of, and how they function and what they live off of and how they survive. We're just scratching the surface. And I saw some of that at the house. And the first time I saw the little girl, I believe I saw the spirit of that girl. The second time I saw her, when she was kind of darker and more malevolent at the foot of my bed, I'm not convinced that was the little girl. I almost want to think that is something else that took on her form so that I would relate to it. But it was negative, it was evil, maybe it was mean, and so it couldn't smile because it doesn't have a smile in it, you know. So instead, it kind of formed kind of a black evil little girl. I don't have a real good answer for that, Rodney. I really don't. I wish I did, but I think it could be hundreds, if not thousands, of years before we even move another inch in this field. It's just so much that we don't understand.
Right. I agree. Well, have you ever worked with someone with psychic abilities? Did they come into the home, and if so, did they help? You know, as far as any information to provide for you about the home?
Yeah. I actually had a couple good experiences and a couple not so good. I wouldn't say that they were bad experiences; they were just wrong. But that's just the way it is with human nature too. There was this one psychic lady who, and this was before we found out a lot of what we know now about the property. She was driving with one of a paranormal group to the house, and she hadn't even gotten to the house yet. But she said she was feeling as if she couldn't breathe, and that there possibly had to have been somebody die on the property who either had something wrong with their lungs or that they had some sort of smoke inhalation or something like that. So that lady, before she even talked to me and before she even got to the house, was kind of picking up on the girl who had died in the house fire. At least that's how I see that. And she was very kind, and she was kind of right on a lot of stuff. And while she was there all night one night. And while she was there during that night, she had had a vision of that the little girl was coming to her, and that the little girl was sitting in front of her, and she kind of described her to me, and lo and behold, it was exactly to a T the little girl that I had seen in the kitchen. So that was a good experience. She was right on. I wish I knew who she was. I don't remember her. I don't remember her name, but she was very good and very gentle and very kind and didn't say crazy off-the-wall stuff. And there was another one who came as well and had, kind of told me a little bit about what they felt. And it come to find out now, here years later, we've done a lot of research and they were right too, So there were two of them that did very well, and then there was a couple others that not so much. I think they were looking at pictures that I had sitting in the living room, and then all of a sudden, the old man that was in my picture, which was my stepdad, the psychic was seeing a ghost of a man, and he was describing the man, and lo and behold, it was my stepdad in the picture, and I think he just seen that picture. And obviously, my stepdad had passed away prior to that, but I think he was just looking. You get that human nature. People want to be something maybe that they're not, or they believe they have an ability and maybe they don't. I don't know how to really say that. I don't want to talk bad about it, but I've seen good and bad, I guess, is what I should say.
Well, here's a question I like to ask a lot of people that has had paranormal experiences or in the paranormal field. Have you ever had an out-of-body experience or astro projected? And if so, can you explain, to everyone what that means and how that affected you?
I have, and I've never spoken about it either on the radio or I never wrote about it in any of my books either. But I've talked about it with, a friend of mine. I did have that experience that after it happened, we kind of talked about it a little bit. She's really into that stuff, and so she knows a lot about it, and I contacted her, and she was explaining some of it to me, and it seems as if I did have an out-of-body experience. I don't know why me. I don't know why it happened. It only happened one time, but the thing was, it was so vivid that I knew that I was still asleep, and I knew that I was still in my bed. But here I am wandering down a road that I know in Fort Wayne. And I'm wandering down a road, and it's almost as if I'm being drawn down the road. So I got to go down the road. But the whole time I'm thinking, I'm asleep. I got to get back home. Why am I here? I was very confused, right? And I didn't know what to do next, I guess. And so I just kept walking down the road. And it was a particular road. There was a reason why I was on that road. I don't want to give a lot of detail in case somebody that knows me is listening. I don't want them to know because they'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But talking with my friend about out-of-body experiences, she's like, you had an out-of-body experience. And oftentimes, how she explains it is, oftentimes people will have those experiences. There's a purpose behind it. There's a reason behind it. And she likes to tell her story where she was helping when she had an out-of-body experience where she was helping a couple kids who was being molested by a man. And the crazy thing was the man saw her out of body, and it stopped him from doing something to those kids. And she remembers that being absolutely an out-of-body experience, and it saved those kids' lives. Mine wasn't so dramatic. Mine's more funny than hers, but I don't know. I don't know how to explain that, but you know what? I have a lot of vivid dreams too. There's just something to our spirits. There's something about our souls, the human spirit and the human soul. We think we know a lot about it, and I think we know very little about it, to be honest with you. There's something about a human that other spirits are drawn to. It's not like they're drawn to my dog, and it's not like they're drawn to the field of cows across the street. No, it's like spirits are drawn to humans. They're drawn to me at the house. They're drawn to my brother. They're drawn to my friend. They're drawn to you. And there's something about our soul that's powerful. Why is it that we can tell a spirit that has the strength and intelligence to probably kill us? They have the ability to kill us, but they can't. Why is that? It never made sense to me. If there are demons in houses, demons are very, very, very powerful. I think they're so few and far between that a lot of stories that get told as, oh, there's a demon in the house, or this is a demon-possessed house, or this is a demon-possessed person, I think 99.9% of them are not demons. But there are demons, and there are demon-possessed houses, and there are demon-possessed people. It's just extremely few and far between. But how is it that people don't die from them? There's something about us. We may be minuscule in their sight, but God is giving some innate ability of our soul that there's power in it. And we can tell a spirit to get the fuck out of my room. Leave. Go away. And what do? They got to go away. They go away. May not for long. They may come back. But there's something about that. So out-of-body experiences, that is something that I cannot fully understand or comprehend, but it is a real thing. And, spirits talking to us in dreams, and here we have some sort of a power just by our spoken word to tell spirits to go away. That's some very interesting things that I wish more people would study. There is a Bible passage. I don't give Bible passages very often, but I am a believer. There's a Bible passage that says, even the angels long to be human. If you believe in the Bible and you believe that to be true, what does that mean? Even angels long to be human. I don't get it. I can't wrap my head around that, because if I was an angel, you'd think I'd be 10 foot tall like a big old Sasquatch, and I can throw this house upside down. And the things that they did inside my house, man, it was some powerful shit. They would throw my dishes out of my kitchen. I mean, I stood in my garage looking at the man door into my house, smoking a cigarette on a Saturday afternoon, and heard all hell breaking loose in my house. And I'm like, I don't want to open the door. I don't want to go inside. I don't want to have to clean up the mess. There was some shenanigans going on in my house, and yet when I finally went inside the house, it was like nothing had happened. There was no broken dishes, no upturned furniture, and I swore to God that was what was going on. They have power to do that, and yet we can tell them to go away, and they got to go away. That's crazy to me. That's just weird.
Yeah. Well, what are your thoughts on parallel universes? Do you think it's possible that some of these entities, that you witness and a lot of other people have witnessed, could they be from another dimension?
Hey, I think that's a high probability. It could, not. Well, I'll even go another step further too. I believe in aliens. I've not really seen an alien, but I believe in the existence of them. It doesn't make sense that there wouldn't be aliens. There's just too much of the universe for them not to be other life forms out there. Maybe the aliens that we're seeing is us from the future. Maybe the ghost activity that's going on in my house or had gone on in my house, maybe that wasn't ghosts at all. Maybe that was alien activity. Maybe that was me in another life. Maybe that is you 4,000 years from now, and you crossed over into our realm, or maybe we have a technology now where we can do that, where we can go back in time and talk to people. So when I sit and I'm hearing a little girl whisper in my ear, "Mommy, is that you?" and thinking that it's the girl that died in the house fire in 1853, maybe that's not the little girl at all from 1853. Maybe that's a little girl from 4795. I believe that could absolutely be the possibility. And here's the reason: we know so little about this field, so little. Maybe we're confusing a lot of what we see and hear. We go out into haunted houses and we're expecting to see a ghost, or we're expecting to hear a ghost, or we're expecting to have some sort of activity go on in the house. And it's going to be a ghost, right? So we go there, and something happens, and oh, look, there was a ghost there. Or, we go to a graveyard, and we're expecting to see a ghost, or we're expecting to, hear somebody moaning or crying, and because we're paranormal investigators, we hear that happen in a graveyard, and the next thing you know, oh, there was a ghost. But what if we're Bigfoot hunters, and we go to the graveyard, and we're expecting to hear some howl? And we're expecting to see some dark shadow moving across the tree line, because that's what Bigfoots do. And we go there and we hear a howl and we see a little dark shadow dart across the tree line, and there it is. There's a Bigfoot, because that's what we're expecting to happen. Or I go out in my backyard and I'm expecting to look up at the stars and see aliens come down. And lo and behold, there's this white light, and it comes down and it encompasses me. And the next thing you know, I tell my neighbors, there was aliens in my backyard last night. Why? Because I was expecting to see aliens. Maybe we should go into everything that we do, with more of a clean slate. Let's not look for ghosts. Let's not look for Bigfoot or aliens or whatever else people look for. If we're interested in being investigators, interested in being researchers, maybe we need to go with a clean slate, and we're just, whatever happens, we're going to explore it. Whatever is said on our EVP, we're going to explore it. Whatever we see, we're going to explore it, but we're not going to title it anything, because honestly, we know less than 1% of what's going on in the spiritual world. Maybe that's what we ought to do. And I think if people start looking more into the paranormal with that type of a mindset, that we may get more answers, sooner than what we expect, because we're not We're not pigeonholing ourselves into one particular thing. Somebody told me there was a little girl that lived in my house up in north of Fort Wayne, and so every time somebody goes there, they're looking for a little girl. That's pigeon-toed. Maybe we need to not look for the little girl. We just need to go there and look. What is happening here? I don't know. I believe in all that stuff,
Oh yeah, I do too. And that's how I go into our investigations. Because of some of the experiences that that we caught on our EVPs and photographs and video, that it to me it's not just the spiritual realm. I think it's so much more because of some of the experiences. Like me and a guy, one of my teammates, were walking through the woods, and for about 20 seconds, you could hear. We went from walking in the woods to sounds like we're in this big warehouse walking on a catwalk, and you could hear ding, ding, ding as we're walking through, and you could hear the echo. And then we walked back into the woods. Now, when I presented that to Mike, I said, Mike, did you feel anything? Did you see anything while we were walking through the woods? I don't remember this. Did you? He's like, no, I don't remember nothing happening. Now, did we walk through a wormhole? Did we walk through some kind of slit in space and time that put us in somewhere else? We don't know.
Right. Yeah. And that may not be a spiritual thing. That may be a physics thing. That may be like what you said. They're a parallel universe. That may be mathematics and not necessarily paranormal.
Exactly. And that's the reason why since that happened, I've got a whole different aspect on how, what we do in our investigations and how we, proceed with them.
Right. And you had talked about parallel universes. That what you had said to me just there really sounds like that could be it. It was like a split in space-time. There was a parallel universe. There was something else going on that you guys walked through. That's really cool. That's a cool experience.
It was, even though we, didn't feel it or didn't see it, we heard it.
Yeah.
Well, have you had any other experiences other than the paranormal, such as crypto or any UFO encounters?
I desperately want to see a Bigfoot or a Sasquatch. I really, really do. I don't go Bigfooting. Cousin runs the Indiana chapter of the BFRO or whatever they call it here in Indiana. So I have the ability to go Bigfooting with, family and see what they come up with, but I just haven't been able to do that yet, but I really, really want to. I believe Bigfoots exist and Sasquatches and stuff like that. So that's something that I want to do. I haven't had any experience with that. But, with UFOs, I have had some experience with UFOs. This is interesting because it seems as if the people who see ghosts often see something else like aliens, UFOs, or Bigfoots. And I don't know why that is. But it seems like that. And I ask people a lot, people who live in a haunted house, I ask them, so have you ever been Bigfoot hunting? Or have you ever seen a UFO? And most of the time, 90% of the time, yeah, I have. I've seen a UFO, the type of thing. I did see UFOs when I was younger. I was in Kentucky, and it was the stereotypical 3 lights, 1 red, blue, and green, and they were flying horizontal. I don't know what direction now they were going, but they were flying horizontal across the sky, and I noticed them as we were driving, me and my sister and her husband. We're driving back to their house. I was little. And I just watched them out the window, and I'm thinking to myself, I think that's a UFO. I think those are UFOs because they were just strange color. We get back to their house, and then I'm still standing in their front yard watching these lights because I'm just fascinated with them. And I go in and I tell my sister, hey, they're still out here. These things are still out here. You need to come look at these things. And they're like, leave them alone. There ain't nothing to that. So I stand out in the front yard probably for another 20 minutes, 30 minutes watching these lights, and they're slowly moving, and they're kind of in a diamond shape, but they'll get out of the diamond shape a little bit, but they're slowly going off to the distance. So slow that it kind of took 20 minutes for them to cross the sky. And then out of nowhere, and I kid you not, I hear jet engines and a fleet of they had to be fighter planes. And I'm little, I don't know what they were, but they weren't commercial airplanes. This was military type stuff. Go shooting across the sky, almost above the house, straight towards these lights. And then I noticed the lights are moving much faster, and then they kind of go off into the distance. It looks as if these jets are kind of honing in, getting closer to them, and by the time they get to where those lights should have been, the lights are just gone. They're just gone. And I don't remember seeing them kind of shoot off or anything. They just kind of disappeared, and then the jets turned around and went back. And I swear to God that happened, and I think that was UFOs over the skies of Kentucky, probably back in 1982.
It probably was. I know, I guess since we're running out of time, this be about the last question. But I know you said that you've done research on the house. How far back on the property was you able to do your research, and what did you find anything that was really intriguing about the property?
Yeah, there was actually a lot of death on the property. The house was the original farmhouse was built in 1853. It was north of Fort Wayne, Indiana. And he had bought 300 acres, and it was supposed to be a working farm. He was from Toledo. I call him, I can't use his real name. I've contacted the family. I've talked to a lot of the family members. They don't want their names used in any of my books or whenever I'm talking about it. So, in the book, the original owner is Jack Blackwood, and he had bought the land. It was supposed to be a working farm, but when he gets to that working farm, he finds out it's really just swamp and oak trees. But they decide to stick around and try to make a living, there, and they sold a lot of the oak, in Fort Wayne for wood as they were clearing the land to work for the farm, and they did a lot of drainage and stuff like that to drain out the swamp. So they really kind of cultivated that whole large area up there, and they started working in the farm, planting crops. There was a house fire. That first year that they had moved there, the whole house that they had just brand new, that they just built, burned down, and their daughter, in the book, her name is Lily. Lily had died in that fire. So she is who I relate to in my book as the girl at my house. I call her Lily. She had died in that fire. After she dies, her mother committed suicide, but we don't know where she committed suicide, because we do know that they rebuilt the house, because they stayed there for years and years after that. It kind of went down through the family. But the mother of the little girl died, Martha Alice. She died. She committed suicide, an opium overdose. And we also know that a farmhand who is unnamed on the census record. So we believe he was a runaway slave that was going through the underground, or whatever they call it, the Underground Railroad, up trying to get into Canada. But maybe it stopped on the way at the farm, maybe stayed and worked a summer or two, something like that. I don't know. But a farmhand died in a well. They were digging the well. It was raining. He had slipped in the well. They couldn't get him out. He ended up drowning, and they just filled the well in instead of taking him out. They just filled it in. So those are 3 deaths that we have confirmed, even from the family. The family confirmed that I've heard those stories of the farmhand, and that they know that Martha Alice died from an opium overdose, and that little Lily Mae had died in the house fire. So there's death right there on the grounds. And that house, the original house, was 150 feet behind my house that I lived at. So, yeah, there's spiritual activity there. There was also some other strange things, business dealings that happened, and they were rich for a while, then they got poor, and they had to sell the farm type of thing. So I think there was just a lot of struggle in general. Life was hard during those years. It was hard for them to get the farm going. Little Lily Mae had died right away. It was probably a struggle emotionally and mentally, and all that stuff just kind of spiraled. And then Martha killed herself, and then the farmhand dies in the well. It just was a kind of a long lineage of death and misery, really, at the house.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, seeing how we're running out of time, what's your plans for 2017, and how can people get a copy of your book? And do you have a website or something where people can go to if they have any, questions or comments, and how they can get in touch with you and stuff like that?
If anybody wants to get in touch with me, I talk with anybody. I really do. I get a lot of questions all the time. If anybody wants to contact me, it's easy just to get me on Facebook. Just look me up, Aldo Gonzalez. I'm the ugly man, so you'll know which one's me. And there's not a whole lot of Aldo Gonzalez's on Facebook, so I'll probably be easy to find. The easiest way to get my books is just off of Amazon.com. The first book, The Feeders at Night, is the name of it. It's available at Amazon. I've also had struggled with cancer, and I wrote a book about my struggle with cancer. It's called Tell Me How Lucky I Am. That's also a book that I have out there. I donate all the proceedings from that book to different hospitals around the area. I give a copy. For every copy that you buy, I donate a copy to a hospital to put in a room somewhere. Maybe somebody can read that, kind of my journals and kind of the things that I thought of and kind of went through, and maybe get some relief or something from that. And then I also wrote a book called Just in Case I Forget to Tell You. It's a book that I wrote specifically for my children, but when I was kind of maybe not thinking that I may not be able to make it through with the cancer struggle, I wanted to make sure I jotted some things down for my kids. And so it's kind of an inspirational book. Things that I wanted my kids to know about me and about life in general, and just things that they could know just to be true. And so that's another book that you can get. They're all on Amazon. Tell Me How Lucky I Am, The Feeders at Night, and just in case I forget to tell you. My new book, Awaken the Feeders, is just about done. We're putting some finishing touches on it now. It'll probably be out by the end of June, and that's kind of a big deal for us because it's a novel. It's about the original owners. It's written as a novel. It's a story that I made up kind of around the truth of the farm. So there are truths in the book, but I don't know the entire facts, so I kind of make them up and just make a little fun novel. It's very interesting, sad. I think we did a pretty good job at that. So that's going to be out and available on Amazon too. I'm going to be at a lot of different shows, paranormal events, book signings. The best way to find out any information to get a hold of me would just be through Facebook. That's just the best way.
Okay. Well, Aldo, I do appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your story and your experiences. I'm going to have you back on because I'm sure there's a whole lot more that we could go into that we weren't able to go into tonight.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'd love to come back on. I love telling my stories. I got about 1 million left. So.
Well, we'll figure out something and get you back on as soon as we can.
I appreciate you having me on tonight. It was a lot of fun.
I appreciate you coming on. Bud, you have a good night and have a great weekend.
You too, Rodney. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Bye-bye. I want to thank Aldo for coming on the show, excuse me, and we have nothing but respect for you and the job he's been doing and his books and his experiences. Wow, it's fascinating. I just want to say that's it for tonight, and thank everyone who took the time to listen in. I'd like to give a big shout out to the Vibe Radio Network and to Holly and Ryan for putting up with us. Also to the first responders and our men and women in the armed services, thank you for your service. And don't forget all the fallen that gave the ultimate sacrifice for our freedoms this Memorial Weekend. Our guest for next Thursday night, June 1st, will be part one of a pre-recorded interview with Philip Mantle. Philip is an international UFO researcher, author, lecturer, and broadcasters. So tune in next week to another exciting show starting at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Everyone, you can check out our Facebook page Within the Chaos, and don't forget to like our page. You can also see upcoming guests along with past shows posting. And you can also go to my website at www.blackdiamondps.org or blogtalkradio.com/. Thanks again. And until next week, everyone have a safe Memorial Weekend and have a good night. And also our thoughts and our hearts go out to the families and of England of the attack at Manchester. So that's it for us tonight. Y'all have a good one.
Attention outlet shoppers. Right now, save 50 to 70% off everything for the family at Gap Factory stores and online. With shorts from $14.99 and tees from $6.99. And save 50 to 70% off everything at Banana Republic Factory stores and online. With an extra 50% off clearance and dresses for women starting at $19.99. Hurry! Search our store locator for your nearest Gap Factory and Banana Republic Factory store or shop us online. Attention outlet shoppers. Right now, save 50 to 70% off everything for the family at Gap Factory stores and online. With shorts from $14.99 and tees from $6.99. And save 50 to 70% off everything at Banana Republic Factory stores and online. With an extra 50% off clearance and dresses for women starting at $19.99. Hurry! Search our store locator for your nearest Gap Factory and Banana Republic Factory store or shop us online.